want a piece of me?
Do I feel lucky? Well, do you, punk?
Good morning, Vietnam! I love the smell of napalm in the morning.
You're gonna need a bigger boat.
I feel the need for speed.
I wish I knew how to quit you.
Love means never having to say you're sorry.
You do. You'll shoot your eye out, kid.
What up, film fans? Welcome to episode 395. Welcome to American History X. You're listening to another new episode, a brand new episode of the Cine-Men movie podcast. I am one of your hosts, Juan, and I am joined by the other host, the cast, the crew, the fellas. Zach, what's up, man?
Hey, what is going on, everybody in podcast land? Everyone doing okay?
Yeah, Carson, what's up, man?
Oh, not much. I just accidentally wandered into this stream and I can't get out. So I guess I'm going to have to stay here and talk to you guys and pretend like I have anything of value to say.
There is no escape.
There is no. That's what happened to us, man. We just stumbled down Wonderland, and Alice was like, "Oh, stay and have tea." So we were like, "Let's do it." What a day! I am excited to talk movies with you guys on another new episode. Good to see everybody. Everybody having a good week?
Yeah, it's been going pretty good. We're almost at the halfway mark, but hey, the show must go on. What about you, Carson?
Yeah, so far it's been a pretty good week. I'm happy just because work is finally starting to slow down after a very rough, busy season this year.
It's always good for a slow down, especially like summer's right around the corner. Even though it doesn't feel like summer outside right now, somebody upset Mother Nature, and I'm just like, I'm glad we have a 60-degree day today here in Oklahoma City. If you guys are joining us anywhere else in the United States or the world, we are in Oklahoma City. So it's playoff time too for the Thunder, so that's exciting for everybody around town. So there's a lot going on. The weekend this weekend in Oklahoma City is packed. I think we have like the Arts Festival. There's Oklahoma basketball going on. The festival.
The arts.
Yeah. A lot of stuff going on. Busy. But what better way to hang out with some Oklahomans than to talk movies? So that's what we're about to do. If you guys did not join us last week we had a very fun conversation all about Forrest Gump, a movie that we probably should have reviewed years ago, but we just reviewed it last week. So if you're interested in checking us out, you can listen to us anywhere that you listen to podcasts. All those podcast links are on our social media, facebook.com/the Cine-Men Movie Podcast. Instagram is one word, the Cine-Men Movie Podcast. The X is Cinemen405. Or you can send us an old-fashioned email, and that's at cinemen921@gmail.com. There you can find all the links. You can find some digital copy giveaways. You can find everything you need to know about our podcast, and come hang out and talk movies with us like everyone else does. So that's what we're here to do today. We're talking American History X. Man, I can't wait to get in this conversation. I know some people are like, talking to a lot of people this week. They're like, man, that movie's kind of risque, I guess, nowadays, but we'll get into it a little bit later on. We got a jam-packed show for you as well. We're also going to talk some favorite recent watches of the week, and then we are going to get into what May has in store for us, seemingly as May is just a few weeks away. So, Carson, man, you're first up, man. You're with us. Recent watches or recommendations. Do you have anything that you want to recommend?
Yeah, so I've recently been rewatching some favorites, and so I recently got Hamnet on 4K, and I saw it in theaters last year and absolutely loved it. I think for me personally, it was either my favorite or second favorite movie of the year. And so sitting down to watch it again at home, I was a little nervous that, I don't know, maybe it wouldn't have the same impact on me as it did in theater. And boy, second time around, it hits just as hard as the first time. And so that was a really pleasant realization that it's just as powerful. The performances are just as good. really everything about that movie. It just speaks to me in a way that is really hard to describe. And so I highly recommend that. A little bit more than a week ago, so technically outside the span, I also went with some women in my family to go see the drama in
Ooh, nice.
theaters,
Yeah.
which they all either hated or said was okay, and I personally really loved.
There
It
you
was
go.
a very unique movie. I never in 100 years would I have guessed what the premise actually is, but I kind of find it interesting and I kind of love it. And I think that it has a really great dark sense of humor, really great character work, and some amazing performances. I also think the editing at times is really, really great, and how it punctuates scenes. So those are two movies that I've seen recently that I would highly recommend.
Nice. I need to go see the drama. I'm like the
Gotta,
only one left that hasn't seen it.
gotta go see it, man.
I know I got to go see it before they take it out. I'll go next. I usually Carson. I'm the one who watches a lot of the off the wall.
A24. Yeah.
Zach questions me on why I set 2 hours and set and finished watching that. But it was honestly kind of a good week. I was able to get 28 years later the Bone Temple in. I rewatched Killers of the Flower Moon, a few wrestling documentaries because of what week it was. Menace to Society is probably the one I'm going to recommend. And then, of course, I watched American History X for today's episode. But have you ever just sat and watched a movie and it just like impacts you so much? You maybe it was a first time watch, or you haven't seen it in a while, and just I let the menu play for like a good 10 minutes because I'm still sitting there processing what I was watching. And that's how Menace to Society was for me. I was going through some different criterions. I'm like, oh, I forgot. One, I forgot I had that. Then two, I forgot they even put that on Criterion. And I was just like, man, I was just applauded by the end of that movie. And I'm just really, really good. But if I had to recommend anything, I believe The Bone Temple is on Netflix. That's how I seen it. I thought it was okay. I know a lot of people was like head over heels with The Bone Temple, but to me, I feel like 28 years later is still
It's
better.
better.
Yeah. Um, and then to go with what Carson said, I bought and seen Hamnet, but I want to watch it again the second time because everybody I've talked to, they just say the second, third time is just phenomenal. You catch different things, so I think that's going to be a fun rewatch somewhere down the line. But yeah, if I had to recommend anything, go check out Bone Temple and Menace to Society. That was a movie that just left me in awe. I'd seen it before, but just with these podcast goggles on that now that we talk about, you kind of watch movies differently, and Menace to Society hit me a little bit different. So definitely go check that out. Zach, what about you?
I have a little bit slower week. I finished up season 2 of The Mandalorian, getting ready for the movie next month. So I have the third season, which I've never seen, so it'll be a fresh watch that I'll start probably next week. Really the only thing on the docket was I went and saw Lee Cronin's The Mummy. So don't go in, I'll just say don't go in expecting the Brendan Fraser Mummy because that is not that at all. Think of it as more of like I guess because he directed, Lee Cronin directed the last Evil Dead, go in expecting like a gross horror film, essentially. I can't really say any more without giving the movie away, but yeah.
Our good friend Craig said he went and seen The Mummy, and I guess he was expecting the Brendan Fraser movie.
No,
but he gave it a 3. He said it was still kind of decent.
Okay.
It's interesting.
Yeah, I probably in the same boat, give it a 3 out of 5 as well.
Recent Watches is brought to you guys by San Marcos Mexican Restaurants, located right here in Oklahoma City at 2301 Southwest 59th Street in Oklahoma City, Oklahoma. Give them a call for a to-go order at 405-685-7773 or dine in and experience the best Mexican food in the metro. Let them know that the Cine-Men Movie Podcast sent you for additional 10% off your entire purchase. Don't forget $5 Margarita House Wednesdays. You can also dine in, like I said, great food and even better customer service. San Marcos Mexican Restaurants. Let's get ready to dive into American History X, guys. Currently, right now, American History X is got an 8.5 on IMDb, an 84% on Rotten Tomatoes, a 62% Metascore, 4.2 on the Letterboxd. It was nominated for one Oscar. It didn't win any. It did come out November 20th, 1998, and it had a budget of $20 million, and it grossed a little over $24 million at the box office. Starring Edward Norton, Edward Furlong. A European American man is released from prison and now a changed man and hopes to prevent his younger brother from following in his same footsteps. For those of you that don't have this on physical, I believe it was kind of hard to find. I don't know if it's streaming anywhere. It's also directed by Tony Kaye. Beverly D'Angelo is also in this movie, which I thought was kind of fun. Did you guys have a hard time finding it, or what was it like for you guys to find?
Go ahead, Carson.
Oh, it wasn't too bad. I went to a local shop that has used DVDs and Blu-ray, and so and they were having a buy two get one free sale that weekend, and so I used it as an excuse to get 3 movies.
Oh, don't tell Juan that, because if after this recording this, I know where he's going.
Yeah. Yeah, so and I looked it up on their website beforehand, so I knew that they had a copy in stock and which location they had it, so I didn't have too hard of a time. So now I've got the Blu-ray in my collection.
Nice.
I didn't go out and buy the movie. I was trying to see if I could rent it from the library or streaming service, and it was nowhere. So I ended up having to drop $3.99 on Apple TV. So, but hey, good quality. So it was still worth it.
Nice. The Blu-ray copy I have is a double pack with American History X and A History of Violence. So it's a nice little double feature.
Another good movie too.
Yeah. So let's get started. First time versus now. Zach, I believe, is this Zach and Carson? It's the first time you guys have seen it, right?
No, that's right.
This is like my 3rd or 4th time, so I'm going to be interested in seeing you guys' thoughts on it. So one quick word as soon as the movie was over, what word went through your mind? Zach, we'll start with you.
I don't know if I'll say a multitude, a sentence, I guess. Powerful, but not in 2026. So if that says anything.
Yeah, I don't know if I can boil my thoughts down to one word, but I went in knowing pretty much just the IMDb summary, what's on the back of the box, and so I didn't really know what to expect, but I walked away definitely seeing why this movie is kind of hung around in kind of the cinema zeitgeist. Like, it's not the biggest movie ever made. It's not the most influential movie ever made, but I do think that it does have a legacy and has stuck around, and that's one of the reasons why I whenever I was given the list of movies that you guys were going to do, this one stood out to me because it was one that I do hear referenced a lot and talked about a lot. Never in a super specific way, but it does get brought up quite a bit, and so I kind of, because I'd never seen it, I wanted to kind of fill in that blind spot in my movie history.
So our theme this year is IMDb's top 250. So whether that be something we might have already reviewed, or we're like, we can do a second look on it, or something that we've never reviewed before, and that's where this movie lies. Is it's ranked number 43 out of the IMDb 250. We'll talk about it later on and later in the episode about, does it belong in the top 250? Is 43 too high, too low? But that's what this year's is themed. So American History X for me, like I said, I had seen it 2 or 3 times. This is the first time I've seen it in probably 5-8 years, and I do like both you guys' like words to kind of sum it up in like just one final word. Like if you had one final word to say about it, and mine would be like, I kind of like how Zach you said almost influential, but not in 2026.
Yeah.
I think that stands out, but I would also probably have to say that is this movie maybe something that should be in like some kind of film class or some kind of like just something when it comes to I like the title and it didn't we'll go to the opening scene. It didn't hit me again until you saw the teacher, point out he's going to call the class American History X. You get introduced to Edward Furlong and his character. Man, the scene that always stood out to me was the curb stop scene, and to this day, that was still so hard to watch. Just hearing the sound of the teeth going on the concrete. What'd you guys think of that?
That is one of the most memorable scenes in the movie for me, and it is something that is going to stick with me 10 years down the line. Whenever I think of this movie, that'll be one of the scenes that I remember. I think that scene in particular, but I think that for me, throughout the movie, it does a very good job of making violence feel impactful, which I think is sometimes hard to do because we watch a lot of movies and we see people die all the time in movies in crazy ways. And so, we're kind of desensitized to it. And so whenever around that can actually make it feel like gross and unpleasant in the way that real world violence is instead of just movie special effects. I think that that's something that should be appreciated and lauded.
I found this was my second full-time watch through the entire film. And there was two particular sequences that really like stuck with me the first time after like these were two things that I definitely remember from the first time into now was the I know it's not technically a nightmare sequence, but like that whole sequence of him, like Edward Norton or Derek, just showing his true colors and like you said, doing the curb stomp scene. And the other scene is, spoiler alert for a 30-year-old movie, almost 30-year-old movie, Danny's death at the end of the movie, just how like impactful that was. Those are the two things that really stuck out. I was like, I couldn't really remember where they were in the sequence of the film, but I knew getting there was okay. We're about to get to that scene, and so it was kind of an interesting rewatch on this time around. It was kind of like I kind of agree with you on. I don't know if it would be a certain type of sociological or sociology film class where they show this type of film and just show how easily someone could go down the rabbit of hate to the point of where Edward Norton's character gets to before he goes to prison. But that'd be an interesting conversation, or that'd be an interesting class to be a part of.
I like how you refer them as to nightmare sequences, and it's almost like anytime there was a flashback scene, they were black and white. And whether you're talking about like one of the prison scenes, the basketball court scene, the opening break-in scene, like they very well could be nightmares. I also have to applaud. It's not done very much in movies today anymore, but the character who ended up dying is narrating the film through his eyes, through his paper. He's writing the paper at the beginning of the movie. What'd you guys think of that? Because like I said, it's not done a lot anymore in movies today, and it's just kind of something that I feel like it's a lost art, and I really appreciate it in this watch.
I thought it was interesting. I really didn't think about that until you brought that up. Like he's, the narrator's basically the one that dies at the end of the movie. I don't know if it's a lost art because I can't really think of like too many films that actually do that per se. But I thought it was an interesting concept of the one that really we see Derek's transformation by the end of the film, but as Danny begins his transformation, his life is taken from him, and so he doesn't really fully go back to what he was before he started to go down that rabbit hole.
I think that one of my favorite small details comes from the narration and what is not narrated, because it doesn't end up making it in the paper. We see Danny type out, if I had testified, my brother would have gotten life. And then he has that moment of complete honesty where he types that out, but he can't bring himself to actually keep it in the paper and deletes it. And so it's not in the narration. And I thought that was a really interesting little character beat for him. And kind of, I feel like that says a lot in just like a very quick moment, and kind of how he feels and how he remembers that night.
That's huge, and that I'm glad you brought that up, because that also makes you wonder, like, he would have gotten life, but it makes you, I kind of wonder what exact detail would have been in the testimony, like whether it be he shot him and then he placed him on the curb, because obviously when the cops show up, he's in position. So what is, I just, it makes me wonder Danny's what Danny's say so would have really caused,
Well, I was going to ask is it ever really explained? Does he not testify because it's his brother, or does he not testify because of the organization he's affiliated with? Like like they're telling him not to testify.
I don't think it's ever explicitly said, unless I just missed it. I think that it's more implied. I personally read it as because he didn't want to testify against his brother. And so, the exact details I don't think really matter. He could, like, how did the court case play out? Why didn't they have him testify? Those are things that we can think about and speculate, but I don't think that they really change the emotional core of the movie or of the character. And so I think that that's, one of the reasons why they're left out, is because it doesn't really change the trajectory.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah, and that's another good point. And I'm just like, that's a big gap though, because what he ended up just serving 3 years. So 3 years compared to life is huge. It's not like we're talking just months or years. We're talking, oof. Like the one thing I did mention earlier is that this movie was nominated for 1 Oscar. It was Edward Norton, Best Actor in a Leading Role. Right now I can't think of who won that year.
I can pull it up. Just give me a second.
While Zach is doing that, Carson, I'll start with you. What did we think of Seth? Seth is a over exaggerated, just mean bully, played by Ethan Spurley, and man, I was just kind of, I forgot how nasty this character is, and I don't know when we'll talk about Ethan Spurley again, but Carson, what did you think of just that character?
For a little while, it was a little surreal for me, because my wife introduced me to the show My Name is Earl, and he is on that show a lot, and so it was a little surreal. That's mainly what I associate him with. And so seeing him be so nasty and play a reprehensible character like that, it kind of took a little while for my brain to readjust. But by the end of it, it was I don't know, it was kind of horrifying, because I have seen him in other things, and something that is more lighthearted, that it almost kind of felt like it reinforced the idea of, like, of anybody, when in the right circumstances, in the right environment, can go down a terrible path and can be consumed by irrational hatred.
Yeah.
It's true.
Carson, just give us 5 seconds because Vaughn's gonna have a rant after I tell him what year this is.
What do you mean?
So this came out 98. This is the Oscars that are okay. I don't even want to say it because I just know this the vein in your head's gonna explode. This is the year of Shakespeare in Love won Best Picture.
Oh yeah.
So no, he was nominated. Edward Norton was nominated. Roberto Benigni for Life is Beautiful won. Tom Hanks for this is also the same year as Saving Private Ryan. So Tom Hanks was nominated, and Ian McKellen for Gods and Monsters, and Nick Nolte for Affliction. So
I've never seen Life is Beautiful, so I can't compare. Has anybody seen it?
No.
So see, I didn't get too angry.
No, I'll get like a hateful text message in about 10 minutes.
My fist is over here clenched right now.
Right.
So what did you guys think of Edward Norton's performance, since that's kind of a good segue into that aspect of the film?
So I'll probably go out on a limb and say obviously he's the best performance of the movie. You can clearly tell the differences between before and after prison. And I think Edward Norton is a very versatile actor to do that. To be honest, outside of him, other than Dr. Sweeney, who was the principal, I thought everyone was kind of like just I don't know if I would say wooden, but just I don't think they weren't on the same level as Edward Norton. You know what I mean? It's just kind of like they're kind of there. They're letting him do most of the legwork, and so it's just kind of like Edward Furlong. It's a very different performance, obviously, from Terminator 2, but you can definitely tell I just think he's up to par with Edward Norton in some of the scenes. What do you guys think?
I'll go next on the Edward Norton question. Like, I think this is by far one of his best performances, and I think this is the movie that like really did put him up there. Obviously, it got him the nom, but like I think you have 3 different styles of Derek in this movie. You have the long-haired Derek when Dad was still alive. You have the Nazi-ran organization leader Derek, and then you have post-prison Derek. And man, Edward Norton just delivers on all 3 phases, and it's like kind of you're like, man, where is that Edward Norton at today? But as far as just this movie goes, you're just I was in awe after rewatching it again, and I thought this movie was going to kind of drag just a little bit. But I got to say, with the performances of Edward Norton, and you know what, I'm gonna throw Ethan Spurley in there too, because I thought him as Seth was just too raw. And like Carson, like you said, I'm glad you brought it up. He was just he's lighthearted in everything else he does. You know, Remember the Titans, My Name is Earl, a lot of stuff like that. He's just a lighthearted dude. But he was a monster in this one. And I got to say, he wasn't up there with, Edward Norton, but he was pretty good in this movie for the short time that he is in the movie. But Edward Norton, yeah, he knocked it out of the park, man. I loved it. What about you, Carson?
Yeah, this might be some recency bias, but I think that this might be my personal pick for his best performance. I thought that he was so great at the big moments where he was yelling and shouting and angry, but also there were so many small moments where you could see so much being communicated just by the look in his eye or where his focus was. Like, I think about the scene where his mother visits him in prison, and there's just like little eye movements or moments where he's not meeting her eyes, where just so much is communicated with so little. I think it's a fantastic performance. I do kind of feel I did like Ethan Spurley, but I do kind of agree with Zach that I don't think there was anybody who was flat out bad, who was like distracting, but I do think that that aside from Derek and Sweeney, the others weren't really on the same level of acting as them. Like they really were on just a whole nother level.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, for sure.
I thought Sweeney was a good counterpoint to both Derek and Danny, in the idea that, like, I've known teachers or principals that are like that, where it's just like, they really want you to succeed and try to get you out of any type of situation that you may find yourself in. But after a while, you can push and shove all you want, but I'm not going to say some kids are unredeemable, but it's just sometimes you have to let them make their own mistake. And I thought the actor who plays Dr. Sweeney did a very good job at that. Like, say, hey, either you do this American History X paper or you're out. I'm done with you. So almost kind of like a drill sergeant type character.
Yeah. Old Avery Brooks from Star Trek Deep Space Nine.
There you go.
Yeah. That's where I got introduced from him too. I didn't. My dad would always put on Star Trek Deep Space Nine, and I just was not into it. But he was always a fun character. I don't know when we're going to talk about him again, so let's talk about Edward Furlong as Danny. He's kind of typecasted through the years, especially in the early '90s, as the troubled kid who can't put cigarettes down, has a foul mouth, just a bad apple when it comes to his group. Terminator 2, Pet Cemetery 2, American History X. I can't really think of any other movies that kind of stand out. But let's talk a little bit about Danny and Edward Furlong, about how, he starts the movie off right off the bat as, obviously in the nightmare scene. Zach, I'm going to steal that from you. And then he kind of has the bad blood between him and another student, which ultimately leads to his demise. But what do we think of Edward Furlong in this year in the '90s with the other two films that I don't know if you guys have maybe seen them, or just Edward Furlong as a whole? What do we think about?
I kind of agree with you, Juan, in the fact that, with the exception of this film and American History X and Terminator 2 Judgment Day, I don't know him from anything else. I mean, like you said, he was basically typecast as the troubled teenager and really nothing else. Because I was just kind of looking at his filmography, and I mean, it's really been nothing since the '90s. And so, I mean, I know he's had trouble with substance abuse and had legal troubles and all that. So that may hinder people's ability to hire him. But do you think it's one of those things where, like, Terminator 2 was such a big movie, like he was going to be the next like big star, and do you think that just kind of went to his mind, or do you think it just really wasn't meant to be, since he was kind of typecast in those type of roles?
James Cameron discovered him. Carson, you wanna add to that, or your thoughts on the actor or the character in the movie?
Yeah, as for the actor, I'm kind of in the same boat as Zach, where I can only really think of this and Terminator 2. I think you also said Pet Cemetery 2, but I wouldn't have ever arrived at that. In fact, it was a little bit of a surprise to me that it was the same person from Terminator 2. I think the hair in Terminator 2 versus the shaved head in American History X. I think I have a little bit of face blindness, and so whenever you change the hairstyle so drastically, and add on the years, it makes it hard for me to tell. But yeah, so I don't really have any real deep insight into his career. But as for the character, as I kind of said earlier, I don't think that the performance is bad, but it's not on the same level as Edward Norton. I think that as kind of our avatar, as our narrator, is kind of the person who who is either giving us the information or who we are learning information alongside, as far as how Derek changed. I think that he serves his purpose. I think that, at least on a scripting level, like some of the emotions with that character works very well. And so, even though it wasn't a huge standout performance, I did walk away, feeling bad about the ending and his fate, and how it kind of feels like he had a chance to turn things around and he was getting on the right path and then was cut down. And so I think that for a so-so performance, I think that the character still ended up sticking around with me, and that was mainly due to scripting.
Yeah.
The changing of the guard with Derek from being cult leader to coming out of prison a changed man. Like, there's a scene where he touches his tattoo and he looks at it and he realizes that no matter what he does, like, that is there. And you can definitely tell, like, the sense of regret. And who said, I think Carson said it earlier about the eyes when he was sitting down talking to his mom through the glass. That's a great bring up, because the eyes Edward Norton has throughout the entire movie is just phenomenal, whether it be that scene or the scene where he gets caught and arrested and he's just staring a hole in Danny, but he's almost like in a mania stance of looking at Danny, and it's just like, dude, the eyes was just phenomenal in this movie. I'm so glad you brought that up. That was so good. But I keep going back, and it's almost like a haunting scene when he gets arrested and he's looking at Danny and he's getting his arms, put behind him. And it's just so many of, I think all the black and white scenes were done very, very well. What did you guys think of that concept of, like, the flashback scenes being black and white, and then it also just, like, how can I put this? Yes, it's rated R. It's very vulgar. The dialogue is doesn't
Very graphic.
very, very graphic. Yes, thank you. But what I like about it being rated R is that it shows you things, but it doesn't. Like with the curb stomp, it hints at it, but again, it doesn't show it. The only thing to me that's really graphic is the ending where Danny gets shot in the restroom. Other than that, like, I think a lot of the other stuff is just not very not as graphic as you probably would have thought.
Well, I think I go one step further. I think Danny's death, and I mean, obviously the gang rape scene, I think they show a lot more in that than I had originally remembered, especially for it to be a 90s movie. But yeah, I mean, I agree with you. Like, the violence in this movie, it kind of goes Tarantino at some points, especially with Danny's death at the end. But like you said, when they do the curb stomp, I mean, it just shows his foot go down, and then, like, that character's eyes just close. But it is, the head doesn't explode, or there's not like a gush of blood or anything. So I think the cinematography in that scene does a good job of, like, telling but not showing, if that makes sense. And yeah, I mean, the rest of it, I mean, like you said, Juan, the language in this is very, very graphic, but I think the depiction of that culture, you need it. Otherwise, I don't think it would have as strong of a effect on the viewer if it wasn't.
Yeah, I think it uses a lot of language that I do not use in my everyday life or any day of my life. But I think that the reason it gets away with that is because it would almost be a disservice to it would feel like it was watering it down if it didn't have that vulgarity, if it didn't have, like, that extreme level of just hate and vitriol, because hate is ultimately kind of what the movie is about, and so you don't want to water it down. And I think that I really like that you brought up the cinematography, because I agree that it does so much of making things feel violent without having to go too over the top, and most of them, like with the curb stop or during the attack on the grocery store, like there's something so violent and unsettling whenever they're just taking that cashier and just smothering stuff and pouring stuff on them. Like, it was so uncomfortable, and I mean that as a compliment to the movie. Like, objectively, it's not the most damaging thing I've seen on screen. Like, I've seen movies where, spines get ripped out, stuff like that, comically over the top. And, but just like the way it is filmed and performed, it just feels so much more mean spirited, and it just makes you kind of feel gross and your skin kind of crawl a little bit in a way that I think speaks very, very highly of the way that it was done and how it was able to convey that with very little.
Yeah, I mean, Mortal Kombat 2 is coming out here in a couple weeks, so the violence in this is very tamed compared to what that's going to be. But I totally agree with you. I mean, that grocery store scene is like when they're basically waterboarding that cashier with the milk and the what other type food. I mean, I like how you said that, Carson. It's very like dirty and grimy and gritty. Like when it's like the slow motion and you see like the milk just like falling down her face. It's just, you could tell like this is like the worst type of hell that you could possibly think of in that situation.
I wanted to bring up the gathering scene too, because it's one of the scenes where Derek, you can definitely tell, is a changed man. He goes to gathering, tells Danny not to go first of all, but yet he confronts Cameron, and almost anything that he has left as far as hatred in his body is towards Cameron, rightfully so. And we talk about the way things ended for Danny. If we're just gonna kind of storytell for a little bit, do you think Cameron would have had something come up for Derek in the long run, or what do you think? Like, if we're gonna fantasy book maybe the ending of American History X in a different light, like Cameron obviously wasn't going to let it slide that he just got knocked out and embarrassed in his office, and then Seth found him. It kind of makes me wonder, like, what was going to happen, what was in store for Derek if maybe we had gotten a 2.5-hour movie.
I've always thought that Danny's death, by the time we get to the end of this movie, whether it was going to be through Cameron or an outside source, which ultimately it is from a rival gang or whatever you want to call it, that it was always like, even from the first time I saw the movie, that was always Derek's consequences. Like the ultimate consequence for him going into that life is, you support all this hate and X, Y, and Z, and you show off Nazi symbolism and everything. It's going to rub off. And unfortunately, that was his brother. And his brother, the death of Danny is ultimately Derek's consequence of joining that culture. And I think it was always written, whether Cameron was going to have a part in that or not. But I hate to say, might have spoiled the move for someone. I hate to say that's a beautiful ending, because obviously it's not, but it's very, I think it's appropriate, if that makes sense. I don't know if you guys had any thoughts on that.
Yeah, and I almost read that to kind of follow up and add on to what you're saying. I think that I agree that kind of narratively it is kind of the karmic punishment for Derek, and I feel like that's almost that is a worse punishment for him than Cameron just taking Derek out. Like, Derek already has so much regrets and sorrow associated with him that I think that if he were to die himself, it wouldn't be as tragic for him as it is to see like the path that he led his brother down hurt his brother and lead to his death. So it is a tragic ending, but it is appropriate, I think.
Almost like a poetic justice kind of ending.
I will say, just to lighten the mood for a brief moment, there is one thing in that scene that really bothers me, and it's not actually an important thing, but Danny has the paper that he's going to turn in, his American History X paper, and he goes into the bathroom and uses the urinal, and he puts the paper on top of the urinal, and the whole time I was just like, no, don't put it there. Stop. Like that. I don't know why, but that just drove me crazy.
Put it in your pocket or something.
Yeah, put it on the sink at least.
That is pretty funny. He's getting blown away, and Carson's just thinking about the paper. Put the paper.
I still to this day will like once a month have a nightmare about like not either not showing up for a class or not turning in a paper that's was due like a week ago. So yeah, that might have been a little bit of that fear coming out where I was thinking a little bit too much about the paper.
So speaking of the paper, it makes me wonder, like, again, this is another fantasy kind of booking moment. Do you think the teacher got the paper?
I don't know, because I think, I mean, obviously, when a student dies like that, that's just horrifically
Could be evidence.
tragic. But is I can't. I mean, off the top of my head, is the paper just laying on the floor covered in blood when Derek goes in the bathroom? Okay.
Yeah.
So no, he probably I mean, if I had to think about this logically, no, he probably didn't get the paper.
We are all super film buffs here on this podcast. What do you guys think is the MacGuffin? Is it the paper?
Yeah. Yeah, because ultimately, I mean, like, he's given that assignment in the first, like, I don't know, 10, 15 minutes of the movie, but, like, you focus so much on the journey with these two characters that you almost kind of forget. I mean, there are scenes where it cuts back to him just typing something on the computer, but ultimately you're so focused on Derek and Danny's journey as brothers that by the time we get to it, it's like, oh, it's time to turn in the paper. And he's like actually excited about it, which is another sad aspect of the situation. But yeah, I mean, a long-winded way of saying, yeah, I agree that the paper is the MacGuffin of the movie.
I don't know why this is trending right now. This is crazy, but there's a photo trending of Edward Furlong of what he looks like this year, and it is insanely different. I just looked on my newsfeed for some reason, and yeah, Edward, he does not look the same. But anyway, different kind of limelight. So overall, we kind of agree that American History X is one of those movies that it didn't make any money. I don't know how popular it was when it came out in 1998, but it's almost one of those movies that has a cult-like following, I guess, because it's a little bit more popular probably now or 10 years ago than it was when it came out, especially with a budget of $20 million and it grossed $24 million. Let's talk about its ranking on the IMDb's top 250. Again, this is just our themed year. IMDb has a list that is their top 200 movies that is, I don't know if it's like a GOAT list or if it's just like a cult phenomenal list or whatever you want to call it. But American History X is rate 43 out of 250. You guys agree with that? Should it be higher? Should it be lower? Zach, let's say we'll start with you first.
I'm gonna go just based off my experience with this film, and we'll get to our final grade about this, but I think it should be lower, honestly. I think maybe you said, what is it, 48?
43.
43. I'd say in maybe the 80s or 90s, honestly. What about you guys?
I'll go short and sweet. I think it's right where it needs to be. I think in the top 50 is good. What about you, Carson?
Uh, let's see. I'm trying to very quickly write out my own personal list of top 100 movies, and I think I'm on like number 7. I've got 1 through 7 down, and so my opinion on this could very well change. It's not a firm commitment to always think this, but I'd probably at this exact moment I'm kind of thinking maybe the 60s.
Okay. This came out the same day as John Carpenter's Vampires. You remember that movie?
Oh, nice. Yeah.
And then it also came out, oh Lord. It came out about a week and a half before The Waterboy, the Adam Sandler movie.
Oh man, could you just imagine going to the movies in '98 and seeing a lineup like that? Like, come on.
What choice do we got? We got American History X or we got a Waterboy?
Man, what a double feature kind of day, right?
Yeah.
I mean, the most like polar opposite films you could possibly think of.
And we'll like Zach said, we'll get ready to get into our number grade. But before we get into that, favorite scene from American History X. Zach, you want to go first?
Yeah. I hate to say that the nightmare opening sequence with Derek just going truly monstrous is a favorite scene. But I like the way it's shot and just the way, just like Edward Norton's performance in that is just like you said, Carson, his eyes are just like so menacing. But probably the one I'm going to go with is the family dinner with Murray, and just like how you can just see just how already far down the rabbit hole Derek is, and just like insult after insult, and to the point where he's like slapping his sister and just verbally abusive to his mom. Is just like, oh yeah, almost at that point, like in my opinion, there's no redemption for this character at that point. So I thought that was a great way of showing that.
Yeah, I'm glad you brought that scene up too, because that's one we didn't talk about. I'll just name off a few real quick. I liked when Derek showed up at the gathering and was like, you know what, I'm done. Called out Cameron. I like the scene too where he takes the gun and then he leaves and then dismantles the gun, and he's done with that. You know, he's a changed guy. I like that. The basketball scene was pretty unique. Just again, how Seth and everybody else looked up to Derek to kind of save their butts every time.
Yeah.
Man, and then the scene that's the most powerful to me is when Teach shows up after Derek got in the shower, and the teacher shows up and he's like, Danny's going down the same rabbit hole you are. You have to come out a better man so you can show Danny how to be a better man. So that moment right there between Teach and Derek was really good too. So Carson, what about you?
I feel like there are quite a few that really stick out to me, and it's interesting to me how many scenes that I think are really good that we didn't get to talk about yet. I'm going to focus on 2 of them that we haven't talked about yet. I really like the moment whenever Danny says, and I'm trying to remember exactly how he says it, but he says, I think if you asked Derek, he would still say that like the anger and the hatred started whenever our father died. But I think that it started earlier than that. And I think that it's a really interesting scene. What follows, we see that's pre neo-Nazi Derek. You know, we get the long-haired Edward Norton and how he's talking to his father, and his father kind of, while not as violent as Derek at least not that we know of or are shown explicitly, that those ideas, came from somewhere, and kind of goes back to the theme of hatred and how it kind of keeps promoting itself and it's passed on. And at some point, you can either help it along its path, or you can try to stop it. And Derek was trying to stop it at the end, and save Danny, but obviously Danny still died. And so I think that was a really interesting scene. But the moment that I think most got me in the movie, which I'm a little surprised, is whenever right before Derek is released from prison, and he goes, and he's been expecting to get killed because he's burned all of his bridges in prison with the neo-Nazis, and so there's nobody watching his back. And then, like, as he's about to be released, he realizes, oh, this guy who I've been folding laundry with and who has been kind of my only lasting friend has been, like, protecting me, and I didn't even know it. And there's quick little moments between them, and I forget the character's name, but the other inmate.
Come on.
Yeah, he just, he kind of denies it at first, but Derek knows. And I thought that was just like a really nice little moment to kind of punctuate his time in prison, which was such a harrowing thing, but then to kind of punctuate it with this like little moment of camaraderie, I thought was really powerful to me.
Yeah, that's another very good scene, and we kind of skipped over Lamont, but yeah, that's a great bring up, another good scene. So, man, so that's gonna lead us in the star rating. I think I'll go first, Carson. If you want to follow, then Zach, you can finish it off. With star rating, I'm gonna give this a 4. And one of my main reasons of giving this a 4 is not only how impactful it is and how it's one of those movies that you just think about when it's over, but this being my third time full watch, like, it flew by for me. I know it's like an hour and 58 minutes or 2 hours exactly or whatever, but I'm not going to lie. I was dreading this watch at first, but I look up and it's the gathering scene. I look up again and there's a flashback of him in prison. I look up and he's getting taught to teach by the teacher. So this movie really did just fly by for me, but the cinematography, Edward Norton's performance, the impactfulness of each scene, how I feel like not a scene was wasted in this movie, the ending, it's a 4 for me. I almost flirted with a 4.5 or a 5, but I just didn't know if, I was like, maybe the dialogue's a little too graphic, maybe, but to me, I think a 4 is going to be where I settle on it. And that's what I'm giving it today. Carson, what about you?
I think that you and I are largely on the same page. I don't know. I'd probably put it, if I can go down into quarters, at like a 4.25 stars. So, and I'm mainly doing that because I want to not just completely copy you and give it the exact same. But yeah, I mean, I don't think it's a perfect movie. I don't think a perfect movie truly exists, and that's kind of the beauty of them, is that movies are always going to be inherently flawed because the people making them are inherently flawed. But that's almost beautiful to me, because that whenever something comes out that has flaws that are very human, it just reminds me of how there are real people behind this. And so I don't think it's a perfect movie, but I think that it's really affected me. I think that something that you just said, I completely agree with. This movie is just shy of 2 hours, and it felt like it was over in an hour for me. Like, it felt like it moved at such a good pace. Every scene was conveying something that it kind of flew by without me even realizing it. At no point was I sitting there thinking, oh gosh, when is this going to be over? Which is really something to commend the movie for, especially whenever there are such harrowing scenes and such troubling material that there was no point where I was wanting it to hurry up and move past, but I was engaged fully throughout, and so I think I'm going to stick by my little made up 4.25 star.
That works, man.
All right. Okay, I guess I'll be the lower of the bunch. I'm going to go 3 out of 5, and not so much of what you think is going to be my reasoning, but because of rewatchability. It is only I think it's been probably 10 years since I've seen this. I'll probably be another 10 years before if I watch it again. I think the message is very powerful. Edward Norton's performance is great. The cinematography, like you said, every time I think about this movie, I think, oh, that's 2.5 hours, but it's just it's barely 2 hours. And I agree with both of you that it flies by with just the reinvention of these two characters as we get as you go through. So yeah, it's nothing. It's not even. It's fine. I think this is a good movie that, we talked about Schindler's List about a couple weeks ago, and I'd watched that, and that's 3.5 hours before I'd watch this again. And subject matter wise, it's almost, almost even technically. Two quick things before we get out of here. Edward Norton had an incredible 90s career. This movie is sandwiched in between Rounders, which was the same year as this movie, and the next year was Fight Club. So, and then, obviously the big question is I wanted to, as we round this conversation out, is that obviously in today's climate, there's no way this movie could be made today. There's no way. In retrospect, after this conversation, do you think this movie, do you think it deserves a second life, and just the kind of the climate, and just it's kind of a good message as you watch this movie, just like what hate can do?
I think that, unfortunately, I don't think that anytime in humanity's near future we will have gotten rid of hate, and so I think, it might seem simple, but I think that it is something that is simple to say and hard to live. I think that we can always use media that is reminding us of what hate does to us and how we need to set it aside. And so I think that in that way it will always be relevant, at least until we end up in the Star Trek future that Sweeney is headed towards.
So this is a prequel. This is a prequel to Star Trek next to that series.
Yeah. It's been said a lot this year. I think the most important and powerful thing, other than hate, is love. And I think as long as you have one, like Carson said, one and the other, I think this movie could get made today, depending on who directed it. I could see somebody like Antoine Fuqua to, be at the reins, or maybe a Spike Lee movie. But I think this movie really could be made and maybe taught in a different language or a different manner. It's just my thoughts.
Nice.
Before we get out of here, though, we are going to talk about what's coming up next. Again, you're watching us live on Imisawa Productions YouTube channel, on Facebook Live, and then you're listening to this wherever you listen to podcasts at. Spotify, iHeartRadio, Pandora, Amazon Music, TuneIn, Stitcher, Apple Podcasts, by way of Prescribed Films Network. So we are also on Prescribed Films Network as well. Just go to www.prescribedfilms.com. There you can find us, The Movie Defenders, Attack of the Killer podcast, a bunch of other great podcasts. So go check them out. May is going to be huge. Next week we end April with Kill Bill Volume 1. It's next Tuesday, April the 20. No, that's May. April the 8th. I'm sorry, I'm in May already. May 5th, we kick it off with Michael, which is in theaters this weekend. May the 12th, Stand By Me. May the 19th, Taxi Driver. And then we end May 26th with The Mandalorian and Grogu. I've been calling it a Star Wars story, but it doesn't have that title. I don't think.
No.
Oh,
Just Star Wars, The Mandalorian, and Grogu.
There we go. I've been calling it a Star Wars story. Nobody's corrected me, but that's the month of May. I think it's going to be a fun month. And then what we're going to look up in June is going to be right around the corner. So if you guys enjoyed our top 5 segments, we used to do them weekly, and then they were kind of like we'll do them every quarter. Now they're coming back, starting with Michael. We're going to have top 5 segment through the rest of the week or through the rest of the year, every single week. So that should be fun. A lot of big things coming up through the summer, and summertime blockbusters are coming up. So we'll be at the movies a lot, I'm sure. Zach, Carson, anything you guys want to add to American History X before we get out of here?
I realize I wanted to say one more thing because I keep thinking and then kept slipping my mind as the conversation continued. But I think that as you've acknowledged, I think that Zach really nailed it with that description of the opening as a nightmare. And we've talked about the cinematography and how the flashbacks are done in black and white, but I just kind of while sitting here thinking, I think that it's really fully hitting me just how genius that decision is. I mean, on the surface level, there's just the difference in language between the present and the past to separate that, but shooting the past in black and white, like it makes it those scenes murkier, which simultaneously like show Derek's like murkier view on life, his darker version of himself, but also kind of going back to the nightmare, it makes it feel more like memory, and how memory is not always clear cut, and how it so much can be lost in the fog. And so that was one thing that I kept meaning to say and then realized that I didn't. And so I'm sorry to bring that up right at the very end whenever you were on a roll with the closeout.
No, that's a great analysis, man.
Yeah, it's great. And I couldn't have said any better, Carson. That was perfect. Zach, anything you want to add to American History X?
Not as detailed as Carson. I can't follow that up. But I will say, I think all three of us kind of agree that this is kind of an important movie, just with today's climate and the subject matter that it deals with. I do think it's worthy of a watch, however you can get your hands on it, whether physical media or streaming or Apple TV or whatever. So yeah, give it a shot and, send in your thoughts. But before we get to Michael, Juan, are you excited to go back to Quentin Tarantino land?
We are. It should be a fun conversation next week. Michael is in 2 weeks, not Myers. But next week, we're talking Kill Bill Volume 1, Quentin Tarantino. This is also on IMDb's Top 250. Join us next week to see where this movie lines up on the list. Does it deserve its spot? Does it need to be higher? Does it need to be lower? Join us next week for another new episode as we review Kill Bill Volume 1 on another new episode of the Cine-Men Movie Podcast.